Hello, my name is Lauren and welcome to the Theoretical YouTube channel, where today we are covering a show that we have never talked about before, but is really good and everyone should watch it. The Owl House is an animated Disney cartoon about a human girl named Luz who ends up learning magic in an alternate dimension called the Boiling Isles. It sort of feels like the spiritual successor to Gravity Falls, and not just because Alex Hirsch voices one of the main characters. There may never be a day where I hear King and don't immediately associate him with Bill Cipher.
Oh, what lovely thing do we have here? It's just so dang shiny. Oh my.
But that's not what we're talking about today. Today we are taking a closer look at the main villain of this series, the Emperor. And just generally asking, what's up with Emperor Belos? Why is this character so mysterious? Why don't we learn anything about him till the end of the season? And why does he wear such a creepy mask? And I think that we have uncovered one of the series' big twists ahead of time, because I am almost positive that the Emperor of the Boiling Isles is a human like Luz. Don't believe me? Want to hear more about why you should watch this show? Well, stick around for a quick intro and I promise we will have some answers in store. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper into the premise of the show and the plot of season 1. Also spoilers, lots and lots of spoilers. So, when Luz is whisked off into the demon realm, she becomes the pupil of a witch named Edalyn, or Eda Clawthorn. Eda is known as the Owl Lady in this realm, not just because she lives in the Owl House and has a disturbing owl doorman named Hootie.
Eda doesn't like trespassers, but I'm always here to make new friends! Wow, look at me! I'm a person now!
But also because she's been cursed to turn into a horrific owl monster. She fights and further delays her inevitable transformation by drugging herself back into her witch form.
Ah! What happened?
She's also being hunted down by a government task force led by her own sister, Lilith Clawthorn.
You know her?
You could say that.
Mysterious past.
The relationship between Eda and Lilith is complicated.
Catch you later, sis.
Not if I catch you first.
Throughout the series, Eda is on the run from the law for a few different reasons. The first is that she's kinda a con woman who sells stolen human artifacts to make a living. And then she's also being hunted because of that whole turns into a dangerous feral owl monster thing. But she's also being targeted by the Emperor's coven, the task force, because she didn't join a coven herself.
Oh, great. You gonna cart me away to the coven now, are you?
Okay, so the magic system in the Owl House isn't super complicated, but it does take some explaining. Only witches can use magic in the demon realm, and they go to the Hexside School of Magic and Demonics to learn it. When enrolled, students at Hexside are then placed onto tracks to determine the discipline that they'll be studying.
Studying multiple tracks at once? No one does that.
For instance, when Eda was at school, she was placed onto the potions track. Is this light distracting? I'm gonna try to shut the window. Better? Okay, where was I? Tracks, yes. Luz's best friends are also placed on tracks as well. Willow is on the plant track, Gus is on the illusion track, and Amity is on the abomination track. While the witches are in school, they have access to all of their magical abilities, but once they graduate, they have to pledge themselves to one specific coven. Covens are all focused on one specific track of magic, like plants and potions and healing.
Those are the main 9 covens, but there are hundreds of other ones you can join.
Academic tracks prepare the students for their eventual covens, but once they get their magic restricted to one discipline, there's also separate sub-covens.
There's Flower Coven, Artist Coven, Big Dog Coven, Small Cat Coven, Tiny please, cat coven?
For instance, the Baker's Coven. Could you imagine only getting to use baking magic for the rest of your life? But honestly, that sounds better than the History Coven. Anyway, almost every character in this show is on a track for a specific coven, and they will lose the majority of their magic when they declare that intention. The exception is the Emperor's Coven, which allows you to keep all of your magical abilities in order to serve on a police task force that answers to Emperor Belos. In fact, the whole coven system was enacted by Emperor Belos for yet unexplained but presumably insidious purposes. And the reason that I'm bringing all of this up is that both Lilith and Ida wanted to join the Emperor's Coven when they were in school.
No way. Of all the covens, they're the worst.
But because there was only one slot available, they were asked to duel for the position. Ultimately, Ida decided that she didn't want to join the Emperor's Coven, or any coven at all.
Since I never joined a coven, I can do every kind of magic. That's why I'm the most powerful witch on the Boiling Isles.
And because she isn't pledged to a coven, she retains all of her magic and self-proclaims to draw on the wild magic of the Boiling Isles. The only reason that she isn't unbeatable is because of the Owl Curse, which cripples her ability to use magic to her fullest potential. But alright, let's table all of that for a second and talk about Luz. Because despite not being a witch, Luz is still allowed to attend Hexside School and use magic, sort of. The in-universe explanation for how a witch is able to use magic is biological. Magic apparently comes from a special pouch attached to your heart chambers filled with bile? So, as a human, Luz shouldn't be able to cast spells or make potions or anything, and she can't, for the most part.
Yeah, I figured that wouldn't work.
In the same episode where we learn about Ida's Owl Curse, Luz discovers that she can draw glyphs that act like spells.
There.
For instance, she can make balls of light by drawing this symbol and then tapping on it. Which is sweet because Luz actually means light in Spanish. I think it's also worth noting here that Luz's magic only works in the demon realm. When she travels back to Earth, her glyphs no longer work. But okay, this video is about Emperor Belos. And we barely even talked about him, but to be fair, the show kind of just slides him in at the end. It's not really until the last few episodes that we learn anything about him other than that he started the coven system and lives in the heart of the Titan. Oh shoot, I should probably explain what the Titan is. The plot of this show takes place in the demon realm as opposed to Earth. But specifically, all of these characters live on the Boiling Isles, which is the decaying carcass of an ancient Titan. So every landscape is part of that Titan's dying corpse. For instance, at one point they visit the knee and it's snowing because the elevation of a bent knee makes it like a mountain range. Emperor Belos' castle is located in the chest cavity of the Titan, enclosed around its beating heart. Why is the heart still beating? It's dead. What you need to know about Emperor Belos is that he is supposedly the most powerful witch in this world. Like, maybe Ida could take him if she was at full power, but otherwise he's the best. And yet his own magic just doesn't resemble the way that this series has clearly defined its own magic system.
Okay. I'll play.
Like, okay, obviously it doesn't have to be just restricted to one type of magic because his coven is the only one that doesn't do that, but that doesn't explain why he doesn't have to draw these circles.
You humans are filled with liquids, right?
Pretty much every other character who casts a spell in this series does so by drawing a circle in the air.
You saw me. I can't draw circles in the air. Not like Ida.
The exception is Luz, who draws more complicated glyphs, and Belos, who does nothing at all. But why? A simple and frankly boring explanation is that Belos is just so powerful he doesn't have to manifest his magic in circles. But if you can't tell, I think there's something else going on here. The other magic item that allows Luz to cast spells and control her glyphs remotely is Ida's staff. And we see multiple times that the Emperor uses his own staff to cast spells like telepathy, telekinesis, teleporting. We also know that Luz can pre-draw her glyphs ahead of time for battle purposes. All she has to do is activate them to cast a spell. Even faster than a witch would have to take the time to draw a circle. So, I propose that the Emperor is doing something incredibly similar, if not the exact same technique under his cloak. Maybe they're not post-it notes, but I think Belos is subtly tapping glyphs with his fingers or his staff in order to seemingly cast more powerful spells than any other figure in the demon realm. It'd be cool if they were like tattoos or something. That would be a great reveal for season 2. But alright, this is definitely speculation, based on the assumption that Belos is a human and therefore can't produce normal magic. But is there anything else to suggest that Belos might not be a biological witch? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I certainly think so. For instance, let's talk about symbolism in this show, in particular how different characters are named throughout the series. I already mentioned that Luz means light and that light is a recurring motif across the entirety of season 1. But lots of other characters have symbolic names, if not outright puns. For instance, Willow is focused on the plant discipline of magic, and willows are a type of tree. King was literally king of all demons.
The king of demons is back!
Amity means friendship, which foreshadows the way she goes from an adversary to an ally of Luz and her friends.
I gotta go!
And even Belos is a Greek spelling of Belos, which means lord or ruler, meaning that his name is Emperor. So what about the Clawthorn sisters, Lilith and Ida? Lilith in particular is a really interesting choice because it could be referencing a few different things. For instance, the name sometimes means night monster and is often associated with owls. So I think we're on to something here. And there's a minor character named Lilith in some versions of the Epic of Gilgamesh, but the most common allusion associated with that name is Lilith the First Woman. In other words, the first wife of Adam from the Adam and Eve stories. So as far as I can tell, most Christian Bibles don't allude to this figure, but she does appear in the Jewish texts, I think, maybe? I am not an expert here, please correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section down below. But the distilled down version of this character that often appears in pop culture is the idea of Lilith the First Woman, that God created Adam and Lilith. But then she was banished from Eden and God replaced her with Eve, and then she got everybody kicked out of Eden. And the reason that I think that the Owl House is referring to this version of the character is, well, the whole owl connotation, and also the fact that over time and history, the figure of Lilith became associated with occult art and literature. The name is synonymous with wolf, witchcraft, and the story of Adam and Eve. So what about her sister? Where does Ida come from? Idolin isn't explicitly a Bible reference itself, but etymologically means God-given or gift of God, which means that the Clawthorn parents had two children named one Gift of God and the other Night Hag. I'd have a chip on my shoulder too. But from here, I don't think it's very hard to draw a connection from Idolin or the Gift of God to Eden, the paradise given from God. In which case we have an even stronger connection to the story of Adam and Eve. And if Ida fills a sort of Eve role in the illusion, then it makes sense that her older sister Lilith would fill the Lilith role, the one that involves being replaced by another woman, similar to how Lilith was afraid her younger sister would steal the Emperor's coven position. And yeah, let's get back to the Emperor here, because we have the two first women, but the illusion only works if we have an Adam figure too. So therefore, I present Emperor Belos as our Adam role, the first man and therefore likely a human. The relationship between these three characters is what drives so much of the tension and mystery throughout season 1. By the end, we finally know why the sisters were fighting and that it all revolved around competing for a position beside Belos. What's even more compelling is that the Emperor's castle just happens to be located in the chest cavity of the fallen Titan. It surrounds the heart. like a rib cage. And as we all know from half paying attention in Sunday school, God supposedly created Eve from one of Adam's ribs. But let's say that the magic system hasn't convinced you, or that you haven't read the Hebrew Bible. I still have one more point to make here and a prediction for season 2. Besides a weird pouch attached to the heart, the other main difference between witches and humans is that witches have pointed ears. We see that whenever Luz has to disguise herself, she pulls up her hood to cover her ears, since they would be a dead giveaway. And who else always has their ears covered throughout the series? Emperor Belos. I mean, sure, it's part of his whole mask, and the mask is pretty distracting. Like, the fact that you can't see the side of his head is kind of the least weird thing about this ensemble. But I think it's all a very clever way to refocus our attention to his face and not his ears. Because what's the point of having a masked villain? To have a big face reveal, right? And usually that means that the villain is hiding something under there, like a secret identity or revealing scars. And the fact that Luz is able to chip Belos' mask and reveal a little bit more of his eyes suggests that perhaps the whole thing will come off in a future episode. And we pretty much know that Belos isn't hiding his face because we recognize it, because there is literally no character he could possibly be. Like, I guess it would be shocking if he was Luz's mom. That makes no sense. No. I don't think it matters what the Emperor's face looks like. I think that the reason he builds up so much mystery about his face mask is so that we don't focus on the rest of his costume. Because there is no satisfying twist as to who the Emperor is, but rather what he is. I am calling it now. Emperor Belos is a human like Luz, and this will all be revealed in season 2 of The Owl House. They don't have a release date or anything, but we do know that season 2 has already been greenlit. So just remember that when Belos' cloak comes flying off to reveal tattooed glyphs and rounded ears, you heard it here first. But like, everyone should watch The Owl House. If you like theories, and since you're here, I'm highly inclined to say that you do, I guarantee that you will like this show. Like, there's secret codes hidden everywhere, and lots of Easter eggs, and lore. So much lore. But I guess I'll leave it up to you to find the rest. Anyway, if you like this video, please consider subscribing, and if you're already subscribed, like the video. You can also comment in the section down below who your favorite Owl House character is. I'm basic, I like Luz. You can also follow us on Twitter at Theory_Central to stop the curse I put on you at the beginning of this video. And support us on Patreon if you actually want to go through with the curse anyway. So thanks for watching. I definitely need a stuffed animal version of King. And we'll see you later.
Were we just having a tea party in animal jammies? What happens in the montage stays in the montage.
Peek-a-hoot!